I think that back to 2021, the defiance in a way of what the IMF was trying to impose to El Salvador in that moment was really important, because you see that the, let's say, bet on Bitcoin or the Bitcoin project wasn't just like a thing that you just said. It was like a real decision, like they were embracing Bitcoin radically. But I think that the times change, and also you you have to evaluate the size of the El Salvador's economy. So obviously, if you can, as they are doing, accumulate Bitcoin and try to bet on the future, it's like long times of long periods of time. It's not like from a year to another. And also that the market's condition, for example, for Bitcoin bonds, that was another important idea and was another important part of what the 2021 law brought to the Bitcoin community globally. You see that maybe the market appetite today is not enough to cover all the necessities that the country has. And to me, it's easier for El Salvador to negotiate with a multilateral organization and give up something that maybe is really important to us, because at the end we came because of the Bitcoin law. It's my case too, but that is not as significant as it could be to get the money and solve the problem that they will solve with it. And also that it unlocks not only more loans and more access to capital, but also it gives the country a new, I don't know, like idea of being regularized in the eyes of the most fiat minds. Because at the end, obviously, for us, embracing the Bitcoin ethos and trying to help and support Bitcoin communities and so on is really important for a government. But the fiat system is still being bigger than what we can do, and also is bigger than what El Salvador can stand for. And the things that it could access to build its own future maybe were big enough to say, okay, we need to change a little the project. And I think that they're still supporting Bitcoin. Yeah, it's okay, you need to explain more and there are more details there. But what they gave up and what they are supposed to get from that, I think that is bigger in terms of, okay, maybe we can go this way and kept building the future that they are trying to build by themselves.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind when I listen to Bukele, when I hear his speeches, when I look at his moves, that this is all calculated, right? You weigh the trade-offs. And I think for him, he looked at the situation and said, okay, well, we're going to have to soften our stance against the IMF a little bit in order to get what we want so this country can prosper. There's no doubt in my mind that this is all very calculated risks and very calculated deals being made. But it's interesting now, though, because there seems to be a mismatch in narratives, right? The IMF is making all types of demands on El Salvador in order to receive these loans. And from what I can see is that they're complying. They've changed the Bitcoin law and they're complying in other ways. And one of the demands that we're seeing now is the fact that El Salvador needs to stop accumulating Bitcoin. Like, they can have the Bitcoin that they've accumulated, but they can no longer add to their reservoir unless it comes from like seizure through illegal activities or something like that, right? But Bukele's narrative on Twitter is much different, right? It is that they're not going to stop and they're going to defy the IMF. Can you add some clarity as to what do you think is happening there? Because it's confusing.
It's also confusing to me that I've been reporting about this since the very beginning, but now following the last months, and obviously it's three things, like the facts, what are the actual facts, the narrative from the IMF, and the El Salvador's narrative. Like you have three different things that are supposed all to relate to the facts, but that not always do. And then there's a big gap of information that I think that is something that maybe we are missing a little, like the government being absolutely clear as they were, because at the beginning it was like getting popular support among the Bitcoin community, and at the end with the modification it could be the same, because we are not demanding you to keep the Bitcoin law and only do Bitcoin stuff, because at the end it's not a Bitcoin company, or it's not a Bitcoin project. It's a country, you know.
Yeah. So, from my take on this is that the Bitcoin law, or the rescinding of the Bitcoin law, or parts of it, wasn't a big deal. What matters is the fact that you could still use it as a currency over here, therefore allowing the grassroots movements and circular economies to still flourish, and that the government basically stays out of the way of Bitcoiners and you know what they want to do. And you know, some Bitcoiners even cheered on parts of the law that were rescinded, because the idea that the government can impose for someone else to take a currency kind of goes against the voluntarious nature of Bitcoin, right? And so, in that regard, I think that you know, El Salvador still could be considered a Bitcoin country, even though that they rescinded, you know, aspects of the law, because parts of it weren't really in line with the Bitcoin ethos in anyways.
Then if they maybe were as clear as they were at the beginning regarding these changes, we don't have to report that much, and we don't have to explain that much or trying to interpret that much. That's the main observation that I have there. And what is happening right now is, as I said, you have the facts that are supposed to be in the documents, and the latest one coming from the IMF, it was in March 3. And it's a staff report that contains a letter of intent that is signed by El Salvador's authorities. It's the central bank president and the minister of finance both signed that letter of intent, so they are aware. This is not something that is happening without El Salvador knowing. Or I saw some post saying that we don't know if El Salvador really wants the loan, but well, at least for the letter of intent, we know that they are trying to negotiate. They are offering what they can leave or what changes can be done, and they are already agreed to this specific thing that is the Bitcoin accumulation. So it's supposed to stop, and then it's where it starts to get tricky. And it's like, in general, if they can be more specific, it could be good. But it's the IMF document said that they shouldn't buy more Bitcoin with the public sector money or through public sector entities. And there are some entities that are mentioned: the AAB, that is the Bitcoin Administration Office, something like that, the Bitcoin Office, and there are other few that are mentioned specifically as entities, public entities related to Bitcoin. And these entities also need to disclose to the IMF the wallets that they have, even if it's cold storage or if it's a hot wallet. They need to disclose that data to the IMF. So it's clear that they say that can buy more Bitcoin to add to those wallets. So they can buy more Bitcoin for the reserve. It's not exactly that. They can buy more Bitcoin through the public sector. So that's what I wrote like yesterday regarding a question that I asked to the IMF regarding the tweet from Bukele. Bukele said, we are not stopping, it will continue, and so on. And I asked, okay, so this contradicts the agreement. So it seems that you can't buy through the public sector leave a little space in which they can keep adding. I didn't say buying, but adding. How? I don't know, but
Well, that's a question that we got here. I asked for questions on my Twitter, and one of them was like, can you expand on how else they can continue to add to their Bitcoin public wallet balance if they can't buy? And, this is from John Dennehy, and what he's saying is that is it possible that maybe someone's contributing through a donation, or whether they're just transferring Bitcoin from another wallet, which they had that wasn't disclosed? Is that possibility?
it's not that clear, but that's what I tried to explain a little in the article, that maybe in this space in which you are not supposed to buy, you can add. There's this space in which you can add in different ways that are not buying nor mining, that are prevented and explicitly prevented in the staff document and the agreement in general.